All right, everybody. Welcome. Delighted you could join us. We originally when we set up Talamh Bio, we set up a seed sovereignty working group, but actually we got so busy with the rest of the stuff around building food sovereignty that the seed sovereignty group itself kind of took a back stage. But that's because we had the Gaia Foundation and a lot of other stuff going on around seeds, so there wasn't a huge push for it. So yeah, it's time to kind of reactivate it now. So Talamh Bio, in case you don't know, Talamh Bio means the living land, and it's about reconnecting land, people, and community. And we do that through building agroecology and food sovereignty. The idea tonight is that we'll spend a bit of time and we'll get to know each other a little bit. Just maybe we might introduce ourselves while we're here, and then we'll look at three different kind of particular areas that we're going to focus on for the seed sovereignty working group. One is in building the underground skills and knowledge on seed saving to ensure it's protected and developed. So we have real resources in the community and in the wider network, that both the skills and the seeds are kept within that wider diversity. And then also, as we go forward, looking at through Talamh Bio and the wider community, how we develop more public awareness with farmers and the community around the importance of seed sovereignty in Ireland, and how it connects to our food sovereignty in the larger scale, but then also a lot of the issues we're facing that are happening now around the world at the moment. And then the third one is kind of looking at policy and legislation at a national and a European level to see what we can do here. I suppose what kickstarted me to turn around and reactivate the group again was Síolta Cree had held a great webinar there about 2 weeks ago about the Kenyans and the Kenyan farmers that got the right to save their seeds within their own country. And I think that's something that's very important to happen in Ireland. It's something we can do, I think, at a national level and then work with ECV and at a European level, because seeds are kind of off the radar for a lot of people in Ireland in general, amongst the public and the population, and with our politicians. And there's good potential there that we can secure the rights into the future without the legal challenges, that constitutional right or something in the constitution that we can get legally backed up that will turn around and ensure our right to save seeds into the future before it becomes an issue like it has in Kenya and other countries where this is something they used to be doing in the past. So I'll just go on here to the next slide, which is, yeah, so essentially Talamh Bio is about working towards food sovereignty and moving away from chemical and industrial agricultural systems, and that's through building biodiversity, cooperation, and community. Let me just move that there a second. Yeah, so like a big push that we were talking about at the moment is the difference between food security and food sovereignty, ensuring that we can grow the food within our own communities, but the knowledge and the skills and the genetics are actually held within Ireland, and those skills are here within Ireland that we can use, and we can protect the genetics going into the future. We do that through working on agroecology, and agroecology is like a wider based systems approach to agriculture. So it's organics, it's permaculture, it's biodynamics, it's all of these six systems mixed together. And agroecology is really important because it's almost like the Water Framework Directive 10 years ago. It's going to be the new language coming up Europe, that's going to be coming through Europe, that's going to be around supporting agriculture into the future. And a lot of the funds will go moving towards it. But agroecology is also really important because it's a systems approach, and it's the idea of when you put the seed in the ground, it's not just the seed in the ground, but how that reaches out into the soil and the biology and the surrounding network of the farm, but then also reaches out farther into the community itself and then into the wider demographics. So Talamh Bio, we've about 300 members in Ireland. We are members of ECVC. They're European members of La Via Campesina. So ECVC has about 250,000 members across Europe, and La Via Campesina has about 200 million members across the world. So when we talk about food sovereignty is important because it's about solidarity. In Ireland, we're told we need to grow the food the way we do because we need to feed the world. But we know the reality is, to feed the world, we need to be able to feed ourselves and stop taking away from those other countries and pushing our agricultural methods of commodity production onto them. So reinventing and putting the culture back into agriculture here in Ireland for ourselves. And again, this is important because, again, we're told we need to feed the world, But the fact is, 70% of the world's population is fed on indigenous and traditional farming systems, and only 30% is fed on the industrial and chemical and commodity system. Yet that system destroys nearly 60-70% of the land and causes most of the environmental destruction that we're facing. So for tonight, we might do a quick a round of introductions and just say your name, why you're here, and why you're interested in the seeds, and then we might go on and go through each of these topics and then see what people's inputs are. The idea tonight is just kind of touch base and have our first introduction chat and conversation, and the idea would be over the next year that once a month we catch up and see what different areas we can work in. So I'm going to close this down now a second. Stop sharing. And sorry, there's a few more people that I need to admit. Okay. So I suppose first of all, I'm Thomas O'Connor. I own and run Manna Organic Farm and Store in Kerry with my wife Claire. We're at it about 20 years. I used to be a publican. My degree is construction and project management. We sold a pub and we bought 25 acres of land because we became very concerned about what was happening environmentally and what was happening around our food systems. One of the things that kickstarted that is when we came back from traveling, we ended up going to a Green Party meeting, and somebody from the Green Party was there, and there was a newspaper with a little article in the back about the planting genetically modified potatoes on the hill of Tara. And I said, Jesus, that can't be right. First of all, it's the hill of Tara. And then I fell into the rabbit hole and I realised that actually it was on Fianna Fáil land. Then I searched up the company and then I found out the company was broke up and they weren't legally allowed to plant the seeds. So I became very concerned about seeds. And the more I looked into it, the more I realised actually that it's very concerning. So there's a couple of things that stood out to me over the years. One was that I was told when I was young in the pub that you are what you eat. That's literally the case. For me to be a Kerryman, I need to be eating the land in Kerry. And whose food you eat, their slave you are. And for me, learning about the seed system and the continuous consolidation of seeds over the years and the control of it was really telling me who's controlling our food system. And in order to have a resilient, sustainable community in Ireland, where to put our energy was really important that we ensure we protect those genetics and knowledge and the information that goes with it. So there's Oh yes, and so I was involved in Transition Kerry and with Talamh Beo. We set up Talamh Beo again to deal with a lot of these issues on a wider scale around agroecology and food sovereignty. So is there anybody else that wants to come in there and give a quick introduction? I'd say I'll name someone and maybe we pass it on then. And if we get to the end and people haven't introduced themselves, then they might put up their hand. So I'll pass to Robert or to Richard from Oblands Glen.
So how does anyone follow that? But yeah, I suppose I was we converted to organic in about 2009. Before that, like I've always been anxious or concerned about the amount of chemicals and destruction to the soil. So we've gone into organic. It's been a kind of a learning curve in a way, but we haven't gone into importing any kind of we try and keep everything as natural as we can on the farm. So I'm more of an inventor and such. So I've been modifying machines to kind of to work with nature and to kind of we have I suppose we're all tillage, basically all tillage. So we've had our hands tied by the department, I suppose, really by not being able to grow different crops like veggies and radishes and those kind of things, which are an essential part of our proper healthy rotation, like. And we've been saving seeds from these, but it's um it's a difficult process enough because we were ploughing for many years, and each time you go to plough, you're turning up a whole new lucky bag of seeds. You don't really know what you have, like. So we've gone away from the plough now, so it's a more we'll be better able to control what grows in our soil, like. So it's an interesting enough time to coming forward, but we've always saved our seeds, and we do four varieties of organic seed potatoes there. So and we save our own seed like wheats. But this is the first year, I'd say, in the history of the farm since 1916 that we have no grain grown this on the farm this year. We're just growing pulses and green cover crops. So that's it, yeah.
Thank you very much, Richard. I might actually just go through the screen here as I see you. Sarah?
Hi there. I'm based in Cloughjordan, into permaculture, the environment, and just later on in life, I'm really understanding the importance of food and seeds. So that's kind of why I'm here to see what I can learn.
Thank you very much. Dan?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for that. So many good words already. Yeah, I've met a good few of you from spaces like Jordan, Gaia Foundation, uh, Seed Savers, and that. I worked in seed production for the last few years. At the moment, work full-time-ish coordinating a seed saving farm in the outskirts of London. I would go home quite frequently to our family farm in West Kerry in Ballinskelligs that we're kind of managing the handover of. I do quite a bit, particularly the last year with European coordination via Campesina and increasingly more with Talib. And yeah, I think my particular interest outside of actual production and access is policy and rights and kind of networks. So community breeding projects, things like that. But I honestly just thrilled to see a space emerging in Ireland around it or like get reactivated. So excited to chat more over the next while about it.
Thank you very much, Dan. Maros?
Unmute. Yeah, Morris DC, farming North Tipperary. We'd be arable farms, conventional for a long time. But one of my annoyances is that to grow malting barley for Guinness, you have to buy seeds from the company, and they only allow certain varieties on. So I went up, set up a canvas brewery, and part of that was to use heritage grains to be able to save seeds and keep it from year to year and get that adaptation. So went to seed banks, kind of tried to find some of the remnants what Michael Miklas had kind of grown and been growing Galway land wheat and a few other ones. And trying this year to do a bit around land sorting and have a seed network basically around a membership model for Ireland so that we can actually, because basically technically I'm not allowed to share any of the seeds that I've grown if I've gotten them from a seed bank and signed a contract that says that I can't let it leave the farm as a viable seed. So that kind of policy piece and how do we get around those rules, I think would be very important to so not only for beer but for brewing, but also for flour and all these other things, getting adapted grains. So I've started growing some land sorting varieties from Denmark, and that's a very cool model. And I think we should have some sort of a model for farmers, basically, that they can actually grow adapted grains at a higher level and not just start with 20 seeds, which is quite tedious and takes time to get it.
We might come back in a few minutes. You might give us a quick description about that cooperative and like the potential there.
Yeah. Cool.
Very good. Thank you, Maris. Jason?
Yeah, hi. I'm an ex-organic grower. I've been seed saving for about 20 years. Been involved with the Gaia Foundation program since its inception in 2016. Yeah, interested to see what will happen now. There definitely needs to be something happening. And yeah, I'm up for it.
Thanks, Jason. Rose?
Hi everyone, Rose Hogan. I'll try and be short on this one, but I basically come from a conventional agriculture background as well, trained in UCD and studied potatoes for my master's. But then I have worked as a development worker for over 40 years and have been involved with seed issues in different countries like Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Zimbabwe, wherever. And now I'm on the board of Talib Bio, and through hearing people like Morris and whatever, very aware of the limitations of seed choice in Ireland and the power and rights issues there. And I think there may be some models from other countries that we could maybe push on our nation as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Kevin? Dudley?
I don't know. What?
I'm logged in on two devices. There's two of you here.
Was there two? Okay, I might. Yeah.
If you could log out of one, maybe you're logged in twice on the one device. That might get rid of the echo.
I'd say I've it done there, maybe. Can you hear us now, Kevin?
You're muted.
You're on mute, so just try it there again because I logged out of the other one.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. I don't know how to get the picture on, so
We can see you
have to hear
anyway.
me.
That's what's important.
Oh, that's grand. I can't see myself. Yeah, I've got a pretty obsessive nature, and so at least for the last 30 years, I've been going down the rabbit hole of seed saving, and then from there, really, I got deeper into it and started looking at genetic characteristics, and I'm more interested in genetics now. And now that I don't have to be involved in production agriculture, I'm more into looking at food and how we can all grow more food, because I think the system is broken and we're all so wound into the system that we're never gonna change it. So to get more people to grow food and realize the local varieties, creating local varieties and straight into complex hybrids rather than reduced land races as well, rather than just varieties. So yeah, I like to save seeds and I like to eat. That's it.
Thanks, Kevin. Randa and
Patrick.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay, so our background is not in agriculture at all. My grandparents were farmers though. So I grew up in basically in their farm going on, during my holidays. And basically, I was in with the cows and in the orchard and actually picking up vegetables and cooking with the product from the farm. So, well, both Patrick and I come from corporate background. So we work for big IT companies. And in 2020, basically, we had a awakening when we realized that basically we had a shortage of food. We were both in London working for a big company. We were in the rat race. And we basically decided to leave our jobs and come back to Ireland where we had our house and started basically thinking about what would make sense for us and what was really important in life. So we went to Cloughjordan, did the permaculture design because obviously we had that interest in food. And that's where we learned, about the issues around seeds, food sovereignty, and so on. And so in 2022, we opened a seed company. So our aim is not just to save seeds, it's also to basically increase the biodiversity, because we saying that the amount of seed varieties that are available in Ireland are not enough, and that basically, we need to increase more, to bring more diversity, but also find varieties that can adapt to the Irish climate. So that's what we work towards. We basically not only grow things that can grow here, but also try other varieties from elsewhere, and we adapt them to the Irish climate. So that's where we are now. We're heavily involved in policy. We try to influence policy at EU level. We're also working with Cork City Council. So we are working on a project of having a seed bank for Cork City. We are also giving workshop and are going to be giving basically training to the community here, community gardens, to actually teach them seed saving skills.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Richie?
Yeah. Almost all of you know who I am. I'm Richie. I was the coordinator for the Ireland coordinator for the Gaia Foundation Seed Sovereignty Program when I took over from Jason in 2024 up until December, when unfortunately, as you all know, we lost our funding. I've been growing seed for over 10 years, but before I was the Ireland coordinator, I was the coordinator for Scotland since 2020. And I guess among the millions of things that the Gaia Foundation does, the thing I was very passionate about was participatory variety selection trials that have been running since 2021, and the goal of that being to get people comfortable with doing these kind of trials to do participatory plant breeding, which we had just started in 2025. And that's the kind of direction stuff that I would be most keen to continue working on and seeing, tying in what a lot of people have said, what works well in Ireland, what works well in agroecological systems, what works well in field scale systems, finding out what that is, and then breeding with that material for tomorrow's veg today. So yeah, that's me for now.
Thank you very much, Richie. Claire?
Hi everyone, I'm Claire O'Grady Walsh, and delighted that I became a member of Talamh Beo just last year, actually, and I'm delighted that this Tomás has gotten us all going now with the Seed Sovereignty Group. I have been gardening all my life, but I dug up the back garden with my far Kayla when I lived in Kildare when our children were small, and started growing heirloom seeds from our seed savers. It was completely, like when Kevin said, obsessed. Yeah, it kicked into an obsession straight away. And I was particularly educated by growing peas. So I grew 4 variety of peas, but one of them was the Vavilov pea from that Anita and Tommy Hayes had rematriated from the Vavilov Institute in Russia when they rematriated all of the Irish seeds that they could get, and those 48 grains as well that time. And I just couldn't believe it. It was summer, my son was born. I thought he'd be out in the garden all the time. It rained all bloody summer. But it was just so interesting because the Irish green pea was back in its soil biome, back in its locality, back in Ireland where it was originated from. And it grew for about 9 weeks longer than the others. So that was the start of going, what's that about? But my own background was in sociology and in politics. So I actually became so obsessed by it. I went back and did a PhD in politics and international relations, and started after the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and realizing the laws were changed there by the American proconsul before they left those countries, realized that seed was hugely important to huge corporations. And, you know, we have a very particular story in Ireland that we keep seeing across the scientific literature. Everything I open is about the monoculture, Ireland being, you know, and the An Gorta Mór, and how we had like no choice, nothing to fall back upon. So I went to East Africa and did a comparative study on the Kenyan and Ethiopian seed laws, which kind of ran contemporaneously in 2012 and 2013. My PhD was made into a book. I then got cancer. So genetics caught up with myself, and so I kind of had to go quiet for the last few years, but I'm back, I'm fine. And what has helped me to get even better was that the Kenyans eventually were able to take a case and have used the findings from my research to take a case, and successfully won in the appeal because they had been criminalized for saving and sharing their own seeds. And so now they've actually catapulted forward to being at the kind of leading case on the African continent in seed jurisprudence as the best example of seed sovereignty. So like when Tomás said that earlier, it has, not only did Ireland and our historical experience inform that case, but now we have actually got to do what they've just done. Exactly as Tomás said, that to apply what they are doing, and like they're facing a huge appeal, a substantive appeal by the government, backed by the giant seed corporations who criminalised them in the first place. They're now facing them in between May and July. A huge court appeal is coming down the tracks at them. But I think that we have something both to gain and, you know, to interact with them is very important. And exactly like Maurice said about like trying to get around some of these laws that are restricting us being able to exercise seed sovereignty in this country of all countries with our historical experience. This is a very opportune time for us to come together and learn from one another as to how we can bring that forward. And it's just brilliant to see all these wonderful faces of people that a lot of them are heroes of mine on here. So thanks.
Thanks very much, Claire. And it is one of the things when we started Talamh Beo and we were thinking about seed sovereignty, it was the idea of enshrining seed sovereignty into our constitution, or finding something in our constitution that we could validate and say that actually this is what the constitution represents. So that's not something we'll solve in the next couple of weeks, but it is one of our longer term goals. So if we keep poking the bear, we'll see how they roar. Mikko?
Mick O'Rourke's the name. I'm from Ennis in County Clare. So my background is in the nursery business for years and years, and I still have a nursery. But I have a very large vegetable garden for my own use, my own family use. And the last few years, unfortunately, a number of years back, my wife passed away, and I got tired of being at home, so I went and took a job for a while, and I worked in Irish Seed Savers for about a year and a half. And I left there and then took on a job where I'm still currently there a few days a week, head gardener to a big castle estate, which I'm slowly but surely turning into an organic garden. The boss doesn't realize it, but it's happening. He sees it at the end of every month when he looks at the bills for stuff that's coming in. So for years and years, I was saving seed from flowers, and even going back to the 90s, in the horticulture, the nursery business, we could see new hybrids coming in, but they were all patented. And the only way you could grow these was to buy a label. And these started to take over the old varieties. Now, I concentrated on herbaceous perennials nearly always. And that end of it was hit very hard. And I was kind of alerted back in the 90s, like something going wrong here. And I started saving seed then of the older varieties. And still to this day, I would never grow or sell a patented perennial, try and keep the old ones. And I think another nursery in my area, Gert Sam, you might know Gert, he's much the same. He grows a lot of the old varieties. He won't allow the patented ones into his nursery, you know. So for a number of years now, I've been saving vegetable seeds as well. And that's going well for me. So I suppose I spent my bit of time I spent in Seed Savers. I learned quite a bit, mostly in the seed saving end of it. I mean the processing of the seed and the storing of seed, which is something I wouldn't have needed before. Seeds in my nursery would be just saved at the end of the season, sown the next year. There was no long-term storage in it. Yeah. So
thank you very much. Tom?
Cheers, thanks a million. My name is Tom O'Leary. I'm calling in from the Deanoch watershed just outside Killarney. My work is it's a beautiful watershed, I'll tell you. Yeah. Goes back in the literature as well. It's an interesting one. But my work is around regenerative future. So it's sort of, how can we build towards futures in which we sort of live more symbiotically with the rest of nature. And food is clearly core to that, and seed sovereignty is core to that. So for me, this is as important an issue as anything else I think that we need to be working on. So absolutely applaud the setting up of this group, and just inspiring to hear everyone speak so far. So yeah, thanks a million.
Thank you, Tom. Seamus?
Yeah, Seamus Bradley. I grow some veg up here in Kildare, do some work with community groups, did the seed saving course with the Gaia Foundation there through Jason there back a few years ago, and I still grow some veg for local supply here for a CSA scheme, and using some more of my own seeds this last number of years. That's me. Thanks.
Thank you, Seamus. Lily?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. So inspiring to hear everybody's background so far. So I am based in North Kerry. I'm not a grower per se, but I work with a local organic farm here called the Barna Way. My own background is in environmental humanities, so I do a lot of research around peatlands and just transition, and also agriculture and just transition. But for the last year or so, we've been working on a project around beans here and thinking about beans as a potential for a protein crop for human consumption. And so, yeah, that again, I'm just thinking about beans, but it's really like rooting that in a sort of wider conversation around food sovereignty and food justice. And so obviously seed sovereignty is at the heart of that as well. So yeah, that's
and you
me.
run a great annual event, the Bachelor Bean Festival.
Yeah, the
Highly
Valley
recommend
Bunyan
it.
Bean. Yeah, we had great crack last year.
We did.
Thanks, Thomas.
Grania?
Hi, I'm Grania from Shielta Cree. We're based in Monaghan. And personally, my background would be more in global justice. And about 20 years ago, one of the first days of my very first job, Claire there came along and started talking about seeds. And I was going, what seeds got to do with global justice? Surely seeds is something that you just do. You just, I couldn't work it out. So I've been curious for about 20 years and I've been doing a huge amount of learning in the last number of years. But two things just to mention is I Shield to Career members of the Seeded Union, which is a network of growers, mostly across the north and counties across the north. And it's been really beautiful just as a member of that to see how seed can be saved, dynamic, and also all the community relationships that come out of it, as well as all the other massive benefits. And then in our work with Shield to Career, we're doing a lot of work, especially up around kind of Monaghan, Donegal, Tyrone, with farmers and regenerative agriculture. And I'm really interested about the role of seeds in that, or the absence sometimes of the debate around seed sovereignty within that kind of regen ag space. And as an organisation, we do have a huge amount to be learning, skills wise, as well as, you know, keeping the debate alive across Ireland, because we're really interested in the justice stuff, obviously. So there's a lot of stuff that people have been mentioned in this call already that's really just got me excited. So it's great. Thank you so much for organising, Tomas, and it's great to see everybody.
Thank you, Grania. Dave?
Hey guys, first of all, Miko, sorry for your loss, and Claire, huge congratulations on your recovery. My name's Dave from Mount Melleray. I'm an organic farmer, a hemp farmer, a worm farmer, but my background's in education and working with the local schools and community groups, and yeah, really trying to build up our resilience of growing food locally in the communities in collaboration with local schools and men's sheds. And after receiving an email about organic seeds and the royalties on them, yeah, I was very excited to see this course come up, and having heard the amazing wealth of information in here, I'm glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've gotten to know each other a bit better anyway, and like it's a great network. Like over the years in saving seeds, the people I've met and the inspiration that it's given me and the knowledge and the skills have been like fantastic. And that's one of the things that's like organic farmers and people saving seeds. It's not like the conventional system where it tends to be holding all that knowledge and information in. It's about gaining as much knowledge individually and then sharing that within a wider community, which is what we kind of hope to do. So like over the next year anyway, at least, and continuing on from that, like I say, we'll look at these kind of main topics, which is on the ground skills and knowledge seed saving. So for me, I know that seed saving would have been something that was abstract in the first place, but then something that seemed very complex to be doing. But then I did a seed saving workshop with Seed Savers, and went down to Madeleine McCleaver. And when I went to Madeleine's, I just realized it was like it was a light switch went, and I realized actually, do you know what, saving seeds on a farm scale is actually really easy. Now I save seeds, I don't sell seeds, but 70-80% of what I grow on the farm I save for my own seeds because of epigenetics and adapting to the environment. And I think if we can share those skills with more people and get more people engaged on the ground level, then the community will take more of a responsibility with it and take on a bit more of it. And then again, how do we tell that story to the wider community and to our farmers as well, who are buying in seeds or they're using fertilizers? How do we help them understand that adapting the seeds to your environment can have such a benefit in building resilience, and then like again reducing your costs? And then how do we challenge the bottlenecks and the legislation and the policy that has been framed by existing system and paradigm in order to create the rules in which we have to operate around. Now, I know for me as a small scale grower, I sell directly to my own customers. The chances of anybody coming out to me and telling me I can't grow those seeds or they're illegal is really slim. But we have a big issue when we have farmers and they want to scale up. And that's not to say that in 5 years, 10 years time, if there isn't pressure put from industry or from big lobbying groups, that actually it could be made illegal for me and they could come to my store and tell me they couldn't do it. So what we need to do now is make sure the skills are on the ground, that the community understands the importance of saving the seeds and how it is connected to all the other collection of convergence of crises we're facing. But then actually, how do we directly challenge the policy and legislation and find places like Richard? I use Richard's seeds for my green manures, and 2 years ago, hearing some of the stuff that the department were doing in the additional precautions they had to make, which for me just sounded more like sterilization of the seeds. And the way I used to be able to go up to my local merchant, and I used to be able to buy organic seed for feeding my pigs and chickens that I could sprout, and all of a sudden the seeds wouldn't sprout, and that came in because some phyto legislation that meant all the farmers had to heat sterilize or sterilize their seed. They say it's because of disease, but ultimately we know it's because they just don't want farmers growing the seeds themselves in the background. So how do we change that policy? So we might actually just start with the first one, underground skills and knowledge in seed saving, and just open it up to the conversation and see if what anybody has to say or wants to contribute. Kevin, you're doing a bit of guerrilla planting, aren't you, of herbal seeds and medicinal plants?
Yeah, the thing is, it's massive, isn't it? You know, our whole lives depend upon so much, not just food crops, but medicinal crops that we don't use any longer because we're addicted to the systems, pharmaceuticals. And the fact that each seed is a living thing. It's like when you look at a field, it's not just a field with soil samples that tell you what's in it. It's a living organism. The whole thing's changing if the sun is shining or not. And just to bring that whole, I think I've gone a complete 360 and now just looking at what the word ecologic means, you know, oikos, the Greek means the household, and logic is to know, to understand. So it's trying to understand the household that we live in. That means all of the creatures, all of the bugs, all of the slugs, everything. They're all part of the ecosystem that we're part of, and we need all of them there with us. Otherwise, we won't be around much longer. And we can see the damage that we've been doing. I've got kind of down a wormhole because I was into production, and I see all the lads that are in production, and it's really hard for you to, you know, in my mind, each farm should have an experimental side to it so that you can be looking at new seeds and creating new seeds, because like there's so much stuff out there that we don't use because we're stuck in a rut and we're trying to produce. We're not even producing the food that we want to produce. We're producing the food that the market is kind of forcing us through economy to do things. And I just think we need to, eventually we'll have to move out of this production system. But while we're in it, we should at least be looking at, future dangers. So like, the zero budget natural farming they're doing in Andhra Pradesh, in India, you look at your inputs. Where are your seeds coming from? Well, my village grows my seeds. Where are your chemical inputs coming from? Well, I use Korean natural farming or JDAM, to get the fermentations and things, and then to look at the machinery and whatever we've got. Do we need to be doing this any longer? And I think what happened with me is I got old. You have to start using your head because your body's not there any longer. And so now I'm just amazed what seed saving does, because they get everywhere. You know what I mean? And before you know it, there's so much food growing everywhere. And then that makes you look at the whole thing differently. It's not trying to grow one crop. It's trying to see what will work and what won't work and what there is still out there that we can bring in and cross into the varieties that we've got. It all really started because I had an interest on-farm seed saving. How did farmers in the past keep their seeds? And it's like they don't go into a bank. That every year those seeds pick up the knowledge from that year on that piece of land, and then we portray that then into the next year. We don't put them in a gene bank where we lock them away for 20 years and then they come back out again and the whole world's changed. And we just it just takes that farming thing that you have to pay attention, observation of things, and I think that's how we kind of evolved, was our powers of observation. So don't be scared. Don't be scared to go outside of what you're doing, we started with an onion variety because the onion seeds, we didn't want to buy sets because we didn't have the ability to produce sets. And so we didn't want to get locked into someone else's production system. So we started growing them from seeds. They were all right. But then when we started bringing in more and more varieties and crossing them in, they just seemed to get more resilient. They get bigger. We managed to get rid of the thick neck fairly quickly out of them. And it's still going. Even last year when their irrigation broke down, we just had thousands of small onions, but it's in there. The genetics is still held within them, within the seeds. So this year we'll see what happens again, what comes back out of it again. And the same with lettuces. So now we don't grow a lettuce variety. We grow, the lads in the UK call it a flock. We're still calling it a grex. All it is flock in Latin. And it just enables us to see what will grow where we are and what does well and what doesn't do well. And then we're looking for colors and flavors in diversity. Diversity has always been the secret. It's in everything. It's in us. So
it was one of the
that's where I'm
things.
at.
It was one of the things over the years in engaging with you, Kevin, that it really stood out is that the solution to a lot of the issues is creating that genetic diversity and rebuilding the relationship between the biology in the soil and the actual plants themselves, so that there is more resilience. And then that we need seed banks in order to preserve genetics, but actually we need those seeds evolving every year, every generation, because like we've had more, living in more of a climatic change now than these seeds have ever gone through. So we need them to be awake and activated. There's no point them sitting in a bank somewhere. The bank is good in case, as a life raft, in case something goes wrong, but it's important that they're evolving with the environment as well. One of the things
we all have our own gene banks, though.
Yeah.
Sarah looks after our gene bank in Clough Jordan for our group. You have your seed, so you have your gene bank. And I think for me, what this group will be finding out who does what, so we can see the spaces. If there's a certain vegetable and we can't get the seeds for it, who can grow those seeds to fit in that spot that's missing, and then we can work on those varieties as well.
Very good.
I think one of the interesting things I found was that actually a lot of the equipment that I needed to say do basic cleaning, it's a really ancient winnower. And a lot of that equipment, basically, my uncle, when I was looking for one, my uncle said, "Oh, I had one." And I was like, "Cool, can I have it?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you could have, but should I put it in a fire 50 years ago, or well, 40 years ago, And it's like all the infrastructure is lost, and there is an amnesia that we've kind of lost the tools and the ability to do it. And partially, I would say it is connected to the legal thing, is that like it is great to have these networks, but we have to stay underground, because even I mentioned nothing on social media about seed keeping in an agricultural sense, because I know there is an office looking at me, and I know there's laws that will come down and knock on the door, basically, But there is these interesting grains out there being grown, adapted heritage grains, and I know one farmer sends it into Flavins every year as his organic oats, and he definitely signs it in as being a modern variety just to ask no questions. And do you know what I mean? So I think there's an awareness piece that to bring it out to a wider audience, we need that legal footing, but then, actually the more people that know about it, the more people that recognize it and say, "Oh, it's not just America. This seed stuff actually affects us in Ireland,"
So
would be
for
really
small
important.
scale growing, for the likes of myself, it's easy enough to save our seeds without being challenged. But when you're growing on a commercial scale, then you have the department and stuff to deal with once you're buying and selling stuff off. You're looking at an interesting project at the moment. Do you want to give us a little bit of an update on that, Morris?
Yeah, so there's a cool project in Denmark called Landsorten, and that's where they've got it's participatory breeding as well, but they basically have a membership model. So it's to get around the marketing of seed laws, so that people within the membership can share seeds amongst each other, because it's for research and for development and for that selection, and actually eventually one of their varieties they've actually registered on the organic heterogeneous material, so that it can actually be spread basically as a variety. Now these are mixed populations, so super diversity, developed with bakers, so developed with the end user in mind and with the farmer in that collaborative structure. So I'm really keen to try and bring that structure to Ireland. and see can we work with the Irish genetic material and other genetic material to see can we get the grains that actually suit the end uses in terms of organic growing or regenerative growing, but equally for the bakers or the brewers or whoever's actually using it, because we there is the Irish Grain Network and it's getting those bakers and millers and everyone all together. But I think the seeds are that really important piece that if the farmers can access the right seeds, and it's like that, it's just to know it and be able to find those seeds and have that system that basically the department isn't breathing down your neck saying you're breaking the law or whatever. And it's like, no, I'm a member. I've got this structure around. And if there's that structure, then we can actually talk about it and push the boat out a little bit more. So that's part of it's with Seed Savers. They've gotten some funding to look into this and look at some of the legals of it. But equally, over the next 2 years is to try and demonstrate some of this and actually hopefully try and get this kind of a seed network, basically, where we have participatory farmers and people curating and very much in that in situ preservation. So seed banks are very important in what they do, but they're useless for me as a farmer. And I'm like, listen, do you have 25 kilos? And they go, no, I've got 20 seeds, and that's not what we need. Do you know what I mean? And what frustrates me is that I only, through a random person, I found an organic grower who's growing one of the Irish Seed Savers varieties, or they gotten it from Seed Savers. And I was like, that's awesome. That's a heritage grain grown for 20 years in organics. That's all the epigenetics, all the adaptation. And yet he can say nothing about it. And it's only through absolute chance that I found him and got some seed to brew a special beer with it. And, that's really cool. But we shouldn't, there should be a repository that you can go somewhere and say, listen, I want to grow cool seeds. Cool, sign up as a member and you can participate and we can curate them. And I think there is that seeds are one thing, but it is always continuously evolving, right? So we do need that structure and that kind of collaboration to help with selection. And, is it going wrong? Is it going right? Is there, because I've been growing Galway land wheat, but equally I'm like, if there were other farmers you could select, and if something went wrong in my harvest, at least there'd be someone else I could say, listen, you couldn't share us the bag there now, and we'll get started again to see have I gone wrong for some reason, or So I think that would really give resilience to the seed system, and give a repository that people could actually access if they kind of go down this rabbit hole of seeds. That there is a network and they can join it and do all of that stuff.
And the important thing there is to find ways to be able to bulk up the material and to be out and proud about having your seeds and the varieties and genetic stuff without getting grief. And if that has to be under a research model at the moment, and we work towards the future of where it's going to be, it's not even the question that it has to be tagged as research, just in order to grow your seeds and grow them out as a farmer. We work towards that in the future, and we find something in the middle that'll turn around and get us over that bottleneck that'll allow bulking up of the seeds and more farmers engaged, and those seeds grown in a wider spectrum.
Yeah, and I 100% think it's a spectrum, right? Because like in one sense, like I'm focused on wheat, oats, rye, these ones, right? But equally, I'm purchasing loads of cover crop seeds, bringing all this foreign genetics in, when really we could be getting beautiful radishes and all sorts of other things growing in fields, helping our pollinators. And we're importing linseed when we've loads of flax, Irish flax, that actually could do a really good job. And there's thousands of acres of this grown every year, that really we could be actually using a much wider genetic pool of interesting things, and not just those main crops. There actually is an application for radishes and all these other things in fields as cover crops as well, even if it's not just food. But again, that would support that whole, that food system, that actually we've got space for all of this genetics. But that would be down the line.
Diversification of farmers as well, so they're not just producing a crop for a grain. All of these cover crops that they're also saving and separating the seed from can be sold on and used by other farmers as well.
And that starts the thing then of, your beans and peas for human consumption. When you're growing and saving the seed, then you understand quality and you end up with the equipment for seed cleaning. And then it's like, well, actually, we can make this step to food production. So I think it's all part of that spectrum. That's all good,
We have about another 10 minutes. Does anybody else want to come in there on that? And then we can... Jason?
Yeah, I think it's good to meet up like this, but what I found in the past with stuff is that people like to meet in person and kick tires and just actually converse in real life about things that happen in real life on farms and stuff like that. That was one thing that the Gaia Seed Sovereignty program did quite a lot of, and you know, was I think, well, I would say it because I organized a lot of it, but I think it was really beneficial and still is the way to go. And I think, like, if you want to make something like this work, it's great to have a Zoom on a regular basis to hold it together, but you need to have events as well of some kind or other. Just to keep it real, basically, like, you know.
Yeah, because the digital world might fade, but our direct in-person
Well,
contacts like is really important. It's a
yeah, I
good
mean,
Well,
I went to a meeting the other day to do with seeds, like, you know, and it was about this group and we're doing land races and all that. And I just find to have a meeting on Zoom, we'd met previously 2 months before in person, and like the dynamics is just so totally different. Like, and I'm not talking about meetings, I'm actually talking about drinking a coffee, looking at someone's production, looking at what machinery they have, you know, and spending an afternoon on a farm together, like, you know.
So the model at Talamh Beo, when we set up, because the Water Framework Directive was becoming so like an important piece of legislation around policy, we tried to set up around water catchment areas, but that seems to have been a little bit complex. The idea was, though, that we'd, around food sovereignties, set up the equivalent of hedge schools, on the ground learning spaces. So we ideally want to do that in each water catchment area, where there'd be a farm and a space that people come and talk about food sovereignty and obviously seed sovereignty with that, but that the foundation belief would be around a hedge school where you're learning from hands-on experience and where the knowledge and experience is passed on directly. You get to handle the tools, you get to handle the seeds and engage with the work. So our idea, as we move on, is that we set up hedge schools across the country, in each county or region, depending on people that are interested. So maybe this is something we can develop from this group over the next while, is that we set up places that are, I'm happy to do it here in Kerry, host space around seed sovereignty and occasionally hold meetings, because obviously we can't travel to each of the meetings, but it's really good to have a space that you can bring people in together. So at Feeding Ourselves, there's this event on the Sunday, it's called the Seed Saloon, and the idea is that'll be the next in-person meeting. And then there's on the 18th of April, there's a food sovereignty and seed sovereignty thing going on in Maynooth in Dublin that will also catch up with that. But yeah, and so at the moment, this is a volunteer group. The idea is the way Talamh Beo works is we have working groups. The working groups come up with projects and they try to find funding and sourcing to develop and push those projects. So depending on the areas of interest we develop out of this group, we turn around and try and find a funding source for that. And then Talamh Beo can support in the background with applications and bits and pieces like that. But that's a little bit down the road. I'd say over the next month or so, we'll get our feet under us and then we'll have more direct projects. And like we hope to run a series of farm walks as well, and then maybe the farm walks be connected with seed sovereignty. But I agree that the in-person connection, like, it's made a big difference to me over the years, going to places and talking to people directly and handing the seeds, because Zoom is a really good facility, but at the same time it's only a space to touch base and like rather than the traveling. The other thing that's happening actually at Feeding Ourselves is Talamh Beo has a memorandum of understanding with UAC. They're the cooperative organization for farmers in Palestine and in Gaza, and they're doing a seed collection. So they're gathering seeds from Ireland for the next flotilla that's going over. And if people are coming up on the Sunday that seed saving, that we'll collect the seeds there. And I think they're going to work on having an address that people can send seeds to as well. So there's all these kind of actions and stuff that can go on in the background. Anybody else have any inputs, or are you happy that we gathered and are you interested in keeping going?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Brilliant. Fair play.
Great. Thanks, Thomas.
Good job, Thomas.
My hand is cramping there now from shoveling today. Yeah, no, that's very good. So we might close it off at that. Claire, did you want to come in there a second there?
It's about the Maynooth University thing in Kildare on the 18th of April. It is actually the first time that we're going to have seed sovereignty specifically on its own in the morning session. So that and everybody is welcome to come to that, because I think that's an opportunity for us to springboard off of that, because we'll have had the feeding ourselves, as well. So like there's kind of one each month. But I think that there'll be interesting kind of things that will come from having a university involved as well, like in a rural location. So it's just worth people thinking about what you might want to feed into that in the next while. So Jason and I are involved in it for starters, and hopefully everybody else here will be able to come as well.
Yeah, well, I plan to go up on behalf of Talamh Beo anyway, so I'll be up there with you as well, so we can see what we can do around that.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that then after. Thanks. That's great.
Excellent.
Is it possible, like, to have, after, we won't be able to attend any of the two events, right? So is it possible to get kind of, at the next meeting, maybe a quick summary of the action that were taken or what was discussed, and, so we know what is happening?
Yeah, that's absolutely possible. The other thing I was going to suggest is, if people were up for it, that we could set up a WhatsApp group specifically around this, and then at least we can feed information and stuff back and forth and specific to the individual topic. I know there's a lot of WhatsApp groups going, but for the working group within Talamh Beo and the particular focus conversations, it'd be really good. And the idea would, yes, when we do go to an event, that we can turn around and give feedback, and we've recorded this and we'll be able to share it with people who weren't able to attend tonight, because I think there was nearly 30 people signed up for it, and there was 16 of us here tonight, so at least there's a larger network out there that want to engage as well. But when the sun was shining, so you can't blame people either, I was thinking myself.
Just one last thing, Thomas.
Yeah.
I kind of got in touch with you because I was talking to Pat Malone, who was on the farm at the time, and Richie put him in touch with the Seed Sovereignty. Gaia were doing there was funding for machinery or whatever, so he put in for the funding and and we have a winnower now in Cloughjordan. But it's no use being in Cloughjordan. It needs to be for the community. So to get it mobile, it's electric winnower, and I'll show you it when you're down feeding ourselves. But the idea is to get it so that it can be used by the whole group. It's no use just holding on to something like that, and they probably won't produce enough seed to use the winnower. They'll use the zigzag winnower for the amount of seed that we produce on the farm now. So just to let people know that that's out there as well.
That's fantastic, because like as Mara said, that's what's happened over the years, is the tools that we used to use, the knowledge of using them at a basic level, have been disappeared out of the consciousness. So being able to bring those tools back in and having them nationally, it's hard to move them around, but hopefully over time, as we go around and we have the hedge school or spots, that every county or every area or region or every farm or collective of farmers has them.
Yeah, definitely. It could sit on a trailer back, and it winnows, and then you've got different size mesh screens, so you can screen out the seeds and everything. So it's just for guys who would be a lot bigger than us, but the funding was there, so now the machine is there.
Yeah, no, and even like I've been contacted by a bunch of farmers looking to just get seed cleaned, and it is a hassle. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh look, I have a one, but it doesn't travel. As like, could you move 4 tons from Wexford to North Tipperary? You're like, that doesn't really make sense. Really bring the cleaner down to them, because you only need it for a couple of hours, and there you've got next year's seed all done. And that's even talking at a farm level. Do you know what I mean? Like, so at a smaller level, this equipment can be shared. It doesn't, in the whole cooperative thing. It's so yeah, legals, but equipment is definitely like something that. How do we clean it? And that's actually on Jason's point on meeting up and in person. There's always that advantage of seeing and discussing and looking at crops. Like those meetings are always very useful.
And if people can bring their seeds, they can get them cleaned while they're having a cup of coffee and having a chat.
That's a super. Yeah.
And do what our ancestors used to do: swap the seeds. So we're bringing the genetics, mixing it from across the country as well. Like, because you can't beat a good bit of Kerry breeding, like.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll see you at Feeding Ourselves. And if not, we haven't set a date for another meeting, but if we try to aim for one again about this time next month, and we'll have a few more updates and in between. So we'll follow up with an email anyway from the Eventbrite, and we'll get people, if you want, to sign up to that WhatsApp group, and then at least we have each other's details and we can take next steps together.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks a million.
Thank you,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Go on.